Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire podcast. And please, before we start, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video, and share it with your friends. My guest today is Suzanna Kennedy. Suzanna, thank you very much for joining me today from beautiful Kauai.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoy being here with you.
My pleasure. So I will start by asking you why Kauai? Why Hawaii? What drew you to this place?
Well, right before I was drawn to Kauai, I was living in Sedona. And before that, I grew up in Michigan. So in both cases, my higher self guided me to where to go. So I spent 2 years in Sedona, and then I was guided, I just kept seeing dolphins and whales, and I got the really clear message that I was done with Sedona. So yeah, it's all spiritually guided. So Kauai, and I've been here now for 23 years. And I haven't been guided to go anywhere else. I really love it here. And it's a perfect place to support me in my work so that I can support other people. It's a real divine feminine energy here.
Yeah, I'm being told every single time I interview a guest who lives there or they were impacted by the place. But for a second, I want to go back to Sedona because I also interviewed at least five guests who are living in Sedona. Rahelio is one of them. I don't know if you had the chance to meet him while you were there. He's an indigenous person, and also he meets with people and runs various programs. But what exactly, or have you had any spiritual experiences while in Sedona? Because I know there are energy vortexes, they have the rock formations. Anything special for you while being there?
Oh yeah, it was really magical. I went there right after I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And so I needed to go to a place that would help me ground it and help me play with the new energies and the new metaphysical gifts that I had been given. And so everything seemed really magical there in Sedona. I would, think about somebody and I'd see them, an hour later. I had some people who would come to me in the astral plane and say, "Hey, let's get together," and we'd meet without, picking up the phone. Um, uh, when uh, when it was time to leave, well, first of all, I watched people who didn't get the message or didn't heed the message when it was time to leave. Because in general, I think Sedona, at least when I was there, and that's, over 20 years ago, is not a place to live permanently. Even the Native Americans that lived around there didn't live in Sedona in the big vortex. They were outside of it, and they would go there for vision quests. And I can't say that what they called it, but it meant the place that makes you crazy. So because everybody's stuff is coming up and swirling around. But when it was time to leave, I remember saying, I'm going to heed the call, because if you don't, it's really rough. I mean, it just like throws you out.
So it's like a
So
transition place. You stay there for a while, you get your lessons, you get your purification or whatever you need, and then move on.
exactly. So I was, so I was laying on a red rock in the sun, and I got this vision. And first I saw that, from my body into the core of the earth through Sedona, I was connected. And then all of a sudden I saw that connection snap, and it kind of whirled up and hit me in the back. And it was like, oh, it's time to go. So then, then I had to say, okay, where am I going? And I had been to Kauai before, and I felt the draw to it like a few years earlier, but I knew I had to go to Sedona first. And so I started meditating and, asking if Hawaii was the right place. Yes, which island, all of that. And yeah, I made a really smooth transition from one place to the other. But in between that, I went on this European adventure. And because I had written an article that got published on a website. It was one of the first spiritual websites up there. I mean, this was in 1998, right? There wasn't that much up there. And anyway, it was published out of Zurich, Switzerland. And I got all these invitations in Europe to come teach. So I did like a teaching tour in between moving from Sedona and then landing in Kauai. And yeah, the whole thing was magical. It was just really easy to manifest. It was easy. Telepathy was easy. Yeah, it's a really magical place.
Interesting journey. And I always ask my guests who spend time in Kauai or Hawaii and live there, have you interacted with any local kahuna?
Yes, yes. There is a woman who is a teacher of hula. And there are a lot of those, there's a lot of those kind of teachers, but she kind of really focuses on people that don't have Hawaiian blood, people that have, like me, have moved over. And which is really nice that she has that niche, because some of them don't really like the the Europeans or the Americans coming over from the mainland. And so it's really good that she provides that space.
Yes, and by any chance you also interacted or work or know of Hank Wesselman? He also used to live on the Big Island, I think, and he taught various shamanic courses there.
Yeah, no, I don't know him.
Yes. So what are you doing on the island? What programs are you running, and how do you help people come into their spiritual path?
Yeah, well, I'm not really offering my services to the people on the island, to tell you the truth. When I did my astrocartology, which is your astrology based on a place, I was told that this is a place to nurture me so that I can help the world. And it's not a place to be doing a business locally for me. So my service is, just kind of global out in the world. I did for a while do some retreats here. So that was another thing. It was a place for me to retreat. So doing retreats for other people, that was in alignment. But we all had to close down for COVID, and then I just never got back up on it again. But I will when I get guided to. It's just for now, this place nurtures me and makes me strong in what I do in service to others.
And how was your feeling and the energy of the place when the fires started several months ago?
Yeah, well, the fires were on a different island. So, of course, we, like the rest of the world, was very sad to see that. There were a lot of community gatherings that were bringing together, food and clothing and donations and all kinds of things to help. And there's still some some community groups that are continuing to help because they continue to need help. and there was a lot of gatherings for prayers and, all that kind of stuff. So, and, Maui helped us when we had a big flood and mudslide that closed down a whole part of the island for quite a few months. And so they came over and helped us. So that's the aloha of Hawaii is, people really come out and get together and take care of each other.
Nice, very nice. I mean, I wrote 2 books about water, and Hawaii was a main component of these 2 books. And I envision that at one point, the islands will and the nation will become independent again, will push out the USA, and they'll be able to take care of their own affairs, clean up the land, the waters, and get back their ancestral lineage and energy and everything that they lost as soon as the United States took over.
Yeah, I'm aware of that movement and what they're doing. It's a lot to I guess prove to the world in order to get that broken, that link broken, to be able to take care of ourselves without aid, without all that stuff, which we could do because there's a lot of resources here, and there's a lot that we can do. And it's just in the last generation, I think the last 2 generations maybe, where the native Hawaiians have had access to enough education where some of them could go and learn about the law, the international laws, and all of that stuff, so that they could, do this secession legally, so it will stick.
Yes, because not too many people in the world are aware of how this takeover took place with, again, corruption, betrayal, backstabbing. So I read because I had to do my research, and it's inconceivable that someone like United Nations won't take charge on giving these lands back and pushing out Monsanto and DuPont and all those chemical companies who are polluting the lands on the islands.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't count on the United Nations for that.
Yeah, me neither. There's still corruption at that level for sure.
Yeah.
Suzanna, I read on your book, on your website about the 5D paradise. What is the definition of such term, and who will get there?
Well, the Earth was originally created as a 5th dimensional Earth or environment. And, a lot of the indigenous stories of, the Garden of Eden and all of that. So that's how we started out. And the beings that came and incarnated on this planet were in a 5th dimensional consciousness. And so we're just getting back to what we were before. And that's the first step, because there was, there's all kinds of stories about how that happened, how we fell into the 3rd dimension. But all of that is being released. All of the mechanisms, the control mechanisms that kept the Earth grid, low in the 3rd dimension, those are all being released. And so, what our job is to release it from our consciousness, because it's been programmed into us and now it's in our consciousness. So the Earth is ascending. She is in ascension means raising your vibration, and you can raise it enough so that you're in a whole new dimension of consciousness. So we hear about the matrix. So the matrix on the Earth level has been cleaned up and cleared. And so now we just have to do it within ourselves. And so then we get back to what we are originally. So it's available to anyone who's willing to do the inner work to clear the matrix within.
And will the next two celestial events, the March 25th new moon or full moon and the April 8th solar eclipse, will help us releasing more of this trauma and bringing in new energies?
Well, it will, because we get aligned and these new higher frequencies come in. And that's why we're seeing so much chaos right now, is because the higher frequencies are coming in and into a environment, whether it's, outside environment or inside environment, that is vibrating at a lower, slower rate because of the programming, because of the matrix, because of all of these beliefs that we're less than these beautiful beings of love and light that we truly are. And so when a higher frequency comes into a lower environment, it causes everything in that lower environment to start vibrating faster and faster. And that is like a detox situation. So we start releasing the lower frequencies. But for us, what that can look like is a lot of trauma and drama, because if whatever your fears are, whatever your guilts are, can be manifested in front of you so that you have to face it. So that's one way to go through the transition. But I have been offering for many years, because I saw this coming, is a more graceful way to detoxify yourself. And so that's why I created some of the programs that I created to help people go through it in a more graceful way, to alchemize those lower frequencies, so before they have a chance to manifest as a drama in front of us.
And what it will happen with those who want or are not able and willing to face their trauma, their fears? How will they end up throughout this time period?
Yeah, it depends on how much density they have and how resilient they are to, dance with these energies. And, and then it also depends on the soul. The soul decides, what experiences you're going to have, how much you can take of this detox. And, it makes decisions about when to leave this physical earth and when and how. So a lot of souls will say, okay, you've done what you came here to do. You're complete. And your body isn't in a position to handle gracefully these frequencies. So we're going to, exit. And we're seeing a lot of that happen right now. So yeah, some bodies won't be able to handle it, which is okay. The soul is eternal. And so they're just going to, incarnate into, another place where it's their next level of evolution.
Yes. And for those who are willing to put in the work for the inner and higher vibration, will they be able to work and improve their conscious manifestation as well?
Yeah, because if you have done that inner work and you allow, or you work on raising your vibration so that it continues to match the Earth's ascension, then you're going to raise up into the fifth dimensional environment and consciousness. And that's when a lot of the metaphysical gifts, really come online. the other thing that these high frequencies are doing are activating a lot of our, what I call divine DNA. So we are divine humans, and we have that fifth dimensional capacity in our DNA. So as we raise our vibration, more of that comes online, and you do have access to those, what we've called metaphysical gifts that are really natural to who we are.
So when you say divine DNA, you mean the additional strands of DNA that certain doctors and scientists consider junk, correct?
Right, exactly. Not junk. That's some good stuff in there.
It shows how much that domain, the medical domain, and I'm bashing them again, sorry about that, have been brainwashed into thinking that we are so menial, so small, and incapable of getting up and closer to the divine.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a shame. And but they're having, the medical community is having their own awakening and realization, and I think they're starting to realize that they have been not taught, in a way that's not true, and what they're seeing is what they've been taught isn't working anymore.
Yes.
And so they're in a place of confusion and discovery. So I see a lot of medical professionals looking into energy work and energy healing.
Yes, I recently had a discussion, an interview with an oncologist from the USA, and she left the profession and a very high paid job because it didn't make sense to her anymore. Her colleagues thought that she's crazy. She presented a business plan to her hospital administration to open a branch which was based on energy healing, and they rejected it. And I asked her, how come you guys are so smart? You spend many years in school. How come you don't see the percentages of those who are healed compared to those who are dying, regardless of how much treatment they get? And she said, we live in a bubble, and pretty much we don't want to go outside that bubble and check other methodologies, because I am not a professional, but just interviewing people like yourself, I can name at least 4 or 5 cancer-related technologies or approaches that are not invasive, and they have higher healing results than chemo or any other treatment that is promoted by the pharmaceutical industry. So this is what was beyond my understanding, that guys, okay, you did your school. I understand you have a lot of debt to pay, but at least be open-minded. Look at other alternatives.
Well, the example that you gave of this, woman that was trying to get to outside of the box is she couldn't, because the colleagues, want to keep it in there. So, it goes back to, when the medical schools were first started, and who they were started by, and what happened then, and why. And so, there's generations of people that have gone through that system. So it's actually created like a medical dogma. It's like a religion, and you're punished if you try to go out of it. So, but people are. I also know quite a few people that were in oncology in one way or another that had to leave and set up their own healing practice. So it's happening. It's happening, and having the resources to bring those people in and teach them the new way, and get to serve. They still, they went into that because they wanted to heal people. And, they realized that what they've been doing isn't healing people. So they want a real true healing system.
Yes, I agree that their intention is to help people. I totally agree with that. And the joke I use with the doctors is that they lie the moment they open their mouth when they meet a patient, because they say, my name is Dr. So-and-so, and I will challenge that doctor to show me her or his birth certificate to see if on the birth certificate it says doctor. If it's not saying doctor, that means you are lying to me, because your name is not Dr. So-and-so. Your label is Dr. So. Okay, it's doctor. So see, all this mentality and brainwashing is so embedded into that culture that it's very hard to change their mind, to change their perception to what's reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's scary for anybody to be challenged, because once, whatever label, whatever profession you're in becomes part of your self-identity, and then someone comes along to challenge that, the ego feels like in a death threat. And so it will fight. And yeah, because it feels like it's going to be annihilated. So I understand from that perspective why it's so hard for them to change. And that goes, it's not just for doctors, for anyone, that their
Yes.
job becomes part of their identity, or their belief system becomes part of their identity, and you bring in information that is counter to that belief system. It's like a death threat. And so that's why they fight so hard, and they don't want to look. They even refuse to look at any evidence or proof you might give them to the contrary. Nope, don't want to look, don't want to hear about it. Go away. I want to stay in my bubble.
And the best example is like today, FDA was defeated in a case, a lawsuit. Doctors started a lawsuit against the FDA regarding ivermectin. So the doctors won the lawsuit. So FDA now has to remove, they settle it. So that means they paid a big chunk of money. So they had to remove every social media and any posting on their website saying that ivermectin is bad related to C19.
Yeah.
So again, if you go back to any doctor right now who didn't want to prescribe ivermectin, I don't think his position has changed or will change in any way just because FDA removed that and it was found guilty. So this is where I say that they need some mind plasticity. They need to be able to absorb new information and willing to think that they might not be right every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's when things get entangled with your self-identity, it's, until you're ready to let it go, or something comes along to, pull the rug out from under your feet. And that happens as well. And that's why I like to offer a graceful path to transformation, so that you can feel like you're in control. You're doing this inner work, this deprogramming work, because you want to. It's a guided system. It's good for. I do have a lot of people who come from the world where they're more left brain dominant, mental, and they like science and they like systems and they like step-by-step, instructions. And so, yeah, that helps to break down the barriers and the dominance that the mind has over the heart. Because that's another thing, is when the mind is dominating the heart, it's hard for them to open and be compassionate and be empathetic. I've had nurses that said, we were trained to not attach, to be detached, to not get involved, to not get involved emotionally. The doctors and nurses are trained that way. And, you tell them to, make decisions from your heart and your intuition. It's like, what's that? So, but there is a way to present this in a way that supports people as they go through that transition and making it really safe to let go of the old and embrace the new.
Yes, I mean, making decisions from the heart and with one's intuition is a threat to the system, because then others will see that maybe that decision was very good, save someone's life. Say, okay, so next time I should potentially do the same. But that's, again, it's a threat, is not accepted by the system.
Right. Yeah. Well, the systems are breaking down. It's time.
Yes.
It's time. They're all falling apart. And, the good news is there's lots of people who were incarnated on the planet, bringing through these higher dimensional technologies and have been working on them, all their life, and they're just ready to go. And they're just ready for the last domino to fall. Yes. So there is good news. And so it's like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. That's the time we're in.
Yes, I have my champagne ready to pop up. Yes. Suzanne, when you say multidimensional awareness, is that has a different or a hidden meaning? What exactly, if you can unwrap that for us, please?
Well, it's multidimensional awareness is having perception beyond the 5 physical senses. And when you raise your frequency, there's dimensions are like frequency zones, like a bandwidth. And so as you raise your frequency, you're going to be able to perceive in those higher dimensions based on where your frequency is and what, it's like your frequency is the key that unlocks the door to the next dimension. And so I'm working personally on the 6th, 7th, and 8th dimensional consciousness, moving up and down and seeing what is the different perspective from each place that I'm looking out into. So that's, and I just began that exploration. So I'll let you know.
And are the beings living in these dimensions all light-based?
Well, when you start to get beyond the 7th, they're more, well, as you go up, they're more and more light. So, but what's happening with our DNA right now is that we're becoming more light. Our carbon strands are crystallizing. So, yeah, and each one of us has an aspect of us in all of those dimensions. So you have a higher self in the 5th and a higher self in the 6th and the 7th and so on. So you can connect with that aspect of yourself and, set up communication so that they can share their perspective. So that's also multidimensional awareness. It's just like kind of saying, okay, let me see or feel from your point of view. But you've got to be a frequency match.
Correct. And because you share this new exploration you are embarking on, I'm going to ask you a very personal question, and I understand if you won't answer it. Are you an enlightened being?
Yeah.
Thank you. And
I guess that depends on your definition of enlightenment.
There are, so we can name some gurus from India, let's say. We can name Babaji. We can name even Yogananda, which was contemporary, like 20th century. And we can name others, which were much farther down the memory lane. So this is what I'm referring to. Someone who can go into samadhi in and out by will.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I've been living as a fifth dimensional human for probably 20 years.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I also saw on your website a statement about reality crafting technology. What is that, please?
Well, that's what I call the process that I go through to, well, that's multidimensional as well. So Reality Crafting 5.0 at one level is a system of transformation. So I take people through doing that subconscious deprogramming and healing the emotional wounds from the past, and then helping them to bring in their higher dimensional to embody their divine self, and then to consciously manifest their version of paradise, and then come into their sacred world service. So that's like a step-by-step reality crafting 5.0 process, and that's to bring them to a fifth dimensional reality. And then it's also the way that I consciously manifest. So when I'm working with a client and they want to upgrade an aspect of their life, they tell me what aspect that they would like to upgrade. And so I can go in with them, of course, with their permission, to their reality hologram that has their codes. And I can read the frequency and the reality codes, and I can see the potential, like the highest potential for that aspect of their life, how it could be expressed. And then I can articulate how that can be expressed. So the articulation of that is important, because that sets up, the thought creates, right? And then what I also can see is all the resistance they have to that. If they didn't have resistance, they would have that already, right? So we take all of the resistance and alchemize it. So it turns from resistance, and that resistance could be beliefs, it could be stuck emotional energy, it could be karma, it could be unresolved stuff that came from their ancestors and their DNA. I just call it all resistance. So we transform the resistance into 0 point. And then in a 0 point field, you have no form at all, but it's all creative energy. It's creative energy waiting to be told how to take shape and form. So we transmute the resistance, and then we have creative energy that we then add to the intention,
Yes.
and put that together and anchor it. And it's been very, very successful. We get really quick results because we're not working, we're working in the higher dimensions as well with these reality codes. And so time and space, is irrelevant in that point. And so we anchor it in and watch it unfold.
Interesting. And what type of work do they have to do on their own while you are assisting them to move forward on their spiritual path?
Staying in alignment with with what they intend to create. So the systems that I've set up, the delivery method that I have is in a guided meditation type style. So if we're on, kind of step one, where we're clearing the subconscious programming and healing the emotional wounds, I have a meditation for each of the core issues that I've identified. So they're either going to listen to the recordings of these meditations, which is in my emotional mental deprogramming system, which is available on my website as a digital program, or a new thing that I'm offering is to take people through it live in a group, and that's called Sacred Union Reprogramming. And that is new with my higher frequencies coming through. So when I created the emotional mental deprogramming, that was 20 years ago with my fifth dimensional consciousness. And now I'm bringing in the higher dimensional consciousness. And so things are happening in that forum more quickly, more deeply, and more gracefully. So that's what the higher frequencies can do.
Yes, very interesting. And you mentioned karma and ancestry. So sometimes we are being told to, cut ancestral ties or heal these type of ancestry issues we have. But there are also cases when the ancestors are reaching out to us and tell us, okay, you've been selected, chosen to move forward, and we will give you knowledge from the past that you have to keep for our lineage or for our culture. So how do you deal with these two aspects where one has to be healed and the other one is reaching out to give you information?
Yeah, well, you do the healing first, and then getting the guidance or the knowledge, the ancient wisdom is easier to receive, and you can deliver it in from a clearer consciousness without distortion. So yeah, you would do the healing of all the it's not that all the ancestry is bad. It's when you're doing this work, you're clearing anything that is in a frequency that vibrates slower than unconditional love. And so you're resolving issues from the ancestors that weren't resolved before they passed.
Yes, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, unconditional love is a concept I think a lot of us still struggle with, and man, it's not easy. It's not easy for sure.
Yeah. Well, when you come to unconditional love for yourself, it's a lot easier to do it. And when you go through this deprogramming of your beliefs, again, that vibrate at a frequency less than unconditional love, you clear that out, and you can, it's like once you go through that process, it's really obvious then when other people are behaving from their programming. And so that allows you to, recognize that, know that it's not personal. What they're doing is from their programming. It's not personal to you. And you don't take it personally. You don't take it as seriously. It's a lot easier to let it just kind of roll off your back, and just hold a space of compassion so that they can release whatever they're releasing, And it also, compassion, it means it's not sympathy. Compassion is acceptance, allowance, non-judgment, unconditional love. So when you apply divine compassion to something, you neutralize it, you alchemize it to neutral.
Yes.
So then you're not emotionally connected. And, and in that process, you're raising your vibration by octaves at a time. And so the law of attraction is always operating. And so you're not going to attract that old behavior or the people that produce it, so you're going to, you also release all of your triggers. So, they can't push your buttons if you don't have any. So they, and I love hearing stories about people going through this deprogramming, series, and then they get with their family, maybe for a holiday. Well, your family's the ones that put all those buttons there in the first place. And, but they're going to this event and the family's still doing what they do. They're trying to push your buttons and you're like, you can't push my button, because you don't react in that programmed way, you stop. It's a pattern interrupt. You stop that from escalating, and they're either going to adjust to it and kind of raise up to meet you, or they'll just probably turn around and walk away and go bother somebody else.
Yes, and it happened to me. And you know what they say usually, again, with a family member, is you have no more feelings anymore. I said, no, I stay in neutrality. Doesn't mean I don't have feelings. I don't respond to and how you want me to respond, because I've responded like that for years and you got used with my reaction. Now that I don't have that reaction, doesn't mean I don't have feelings. It's just that I've changed my mental pattern and I've decided to not act in that way, in an expected way.
Yep. Yeah, I experienced that too when I first did it for myself. It's like you have no, you have no feeling. It's like, yeah, the feeling I have right now is compassion, but it doesn't, you can't see that. And yeah, it just means you're not letting, I have no buttons for you to push.
Exactly. Suzanna, have you identified your galactic family?
I am in communication with them. But again, I have families that in many dimensions. So the one that I'm most in contact with now is in the 8th dimension. And they're Eldoron is where they're from.
Interesting. And how far away from the Earth, like light years or constellations?
That I don't know. I don't know if they're even in this galaxy, but they're here now. They're on a ship.
Yes, in fact, this was supposed to be my next question. So are you aware of other beings from other galaxies, dimensions who are watching us right now in a stealth mode?
Yeah, very, very aware that is happening. Earth is a very interesting place. It's kind of the jewel of the universe, and there's lots of different races who have seeded this planet with their people, and they're all here for either support or just to watch the show. So
yes, I think they should run a survey for whole humankind with options. Do you want to get rid of your governments? Do you want to get rid of your financial system? Do you want to do this? And then have a poll. And if it's more than 60%, they should eradicate all these structures on our behalf.
yeah, well, that's happening. We do have to stand up and take our power back and claim it. But people are. There's lots of lawsuits going on. There's lots of protests going on. And that's good. It's good to, take your power back. And is what's happening right now is the ones that have been in power for all this time, they don't know what to do because they're losing their power. They're losing their financial avenues, and they're in survival mode right now. And I think they know that their time is done, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to go down without a fight. So
Yes.
That's what we see happening. But they're, to me, it's like, I call it a chicken with their head cut off, how the chicken keeps running around, and it takes a while before it finally falls over. So, just kind of stay out of its way. And yeah, it's in that phase right now.
But the bad part or the infliction the chicken without a head does when it runs away is the blood spilled all over the place. And I think this is what these guys want to do, to inflict as much pain and damage as possible before they are gone.
Yeah, but it's a reflection of the pain and the blood that's coming from them. It's like that's the chicken's blood, and that's yeah, I do agree that they're not organized. They're not rational. It's without a head. So, just like stay out of the way.
Yes. Suzanna, there's a lot of talk about what's coming in terms of solar activity and magnetic pole shifts. In your endeavors, astral traveling and things like this, and your discussion with your guides, is this in the cards for Earth in the near future?
Yeah, we're in that time of transition, and the way that we move around the universe is in a spiral, and we've been here before, but we're at a higher octave in that spiral. So as you get higher, the higher the frequency, the more graceful things can happen. And of course, we just talked about how much other interest and help there is. So, my job has always been to help make this transition that we're going through as graceful as possible. And I see that happening. And the longer it seems to take to us, the more graceful it's going to be. And so, my advice is always raise your frequency, and that will give you the most grace. I think by the time there's any kind of big cleansing on the earth, that will have a lot of people will have already left, or there will be some help to evacuate. And it won't seem like it's forever again. It's like we're taken up, or we've already left, we're already in another dimension, and the earth goes through this big cleanse, and it comes back. I mean, I've seen the earth 5,000 years in the future, and it's beautiful. It's verdant. It's like Kauai everywhere. And the people are living in a way that's similar to what was portrayed in the Avatar movies.
Yes.
They're living in sacred union with the land and with each other, but they're already in a frequency where they're not going to be invaded, because that wouldn't happen in that frequency.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned 5,000 years in the future, because I also mentioned Hank Wesselman at the beginning of our conversation. He wrote a trilogy, Vision Seeker, and he was an anthropologist, but at one point in his life started to have visions, and his soul will go into the body of his ancestor 5,000 years in the future on the west coast of the USA. And at that time, the Hawaiians moved from the islands to the mainland, and they had settlements, and there were huge mountains dividing the west from the middle of the country. And some of the Hawaiians go inland to find food, to find water, and they discover nomads, which came from Canada. And they're living very close to the land. They had shamans again. They were living off the land pretty much. They were harvesting only what they needed. They were, let's say, killing for meat only what they needed, not pillaging and destroying. So pretty much your vision matches his 5,000 years in the future.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the frequency that I'm seeing, our bodies are different. The DNA, all the strands are crystalline. We don't need to eat the same way, so we don't really need to go hunting or to it's just we live off of the light. We can eat for pleasure if we want, but we manifest things, pretty much out of thin air. So yeah, that's where I would say my vision differs.
Yes. Suzanna, any other program you'd like to mention that is active for 2024?
Yeah, well, I would like to invite people to go to my website, which is SuzannaKennedy.com, and get the Quantum Peace Activation. So that's a meditation that I put out as a gift so that you can get into quantum peace, but also experience the way I deliver my programs. And yeah, there's the emotional mental deprogramming system, which is usually the first step. So you can do it as a digital program, or you can do the Sacred Union reprogramming, which is going to be offered again in May. I think I have it set up as a wait list, which is going to be live, and it'll include coaching and in community and me bringing through the highest frequencies at the time. And then I have a book called Sacred Union, Ascending to the 5D Paradise. So that's a nice thing that you can get on Amazon as well if you'd like to know more.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your offerings. We are approaching the end of the interview. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to, remember who they really are as a divine being, and remember what you came here to do. And, so like wake up and get to go, get going on it, and join us in co-creating paradise on Earth.
Yes, leave all the sports games behind, and forget about it. They hold no importance in our life. It's just entertainment, and this type of entertainment of raising your vibration is much more fun.
It can be fun. It can be fun.
Yes, thank you very much once again, and all the best to what you are doing in Hawaii.
All right. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Share it, leave a comment, visit spiritualinspired.ca. And until next time, love and gratitude.